So you often heard people saying, it's better not to say anything, and sometimes I often say it. Sometimes it's better not to say anything because it just starts a big row, and nothing's achieved at the end of it because there's just people wowing about everything. So yeah, what I'm talking about here is human rights. Even in Ireland at the moment as we speak, there's people human rights been taken away, by the guards by the state at the moment because obviously with the COVID restrictions, and now whatever anybody's opinion watching this video for the restrictions or whatever. I'm sure people would agree. Some of the things that are going to outline here. Somebody going to a grave, going on the bus to a grave was fined for going to his father's grave. Somebody going to see their mother, for Mother's Day, not for long, but sure, the girls found that person too, and sure, look at. Again, as I was saying before, humanity. You have to show a small bit of humanity, but again, there's no humanity in this country. Especially the moment of time before that was, some instance, of human rights abuses in this country. But at the end of the day, people are entitled to move around. There's nothing that can really stop them. That's just put pure and simple. There's nothing that can stop them. Unless they rewrite the constitution, which I highly doubt they will. I don't think they'll ever get away with it. But this country they always try. But here, this is the thing, and this is the thing RT doesn't understand. They look every time something abuses happen involving human rights, people's human rights in this country. Let's take for example in this country, RT never covers it. RT looks the other way and says nothing about it. Again, the mainstream media doesn't cover this. And I think for example too, I always talk about this because I always believe that people are entitled to their freedoms, and people are entitled no matter where it is in the world. And people are entitled to their freedoms, people are entitled to move around, people are entitled to their opinion, people are entitled to free speech. That's something that I believe is very crucial in every country to have, and not to live in a dictatorship or communist regime. And I always talk about China. China is a pure example of just pure dictatorship, pure just dictatorship of everybody. And it's not fair on people. You see children being worked in sweatshops. You see them polluting the environment with huge amount of plastic material going into the atmosphere. And nothing's in the United Nations and the UN, they're nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen. So it took them a year to go into China to see what happened with the COVID fire, where did the COVID virus come from. And at that or most, basically they didn't really put much pressure on them, they didn't really kind of bring them in an interrogation room and talk, give them a good doing over. But again, that's the United Nations for you, World Health Organization. Chinese owned, really Chinese government. China's invested huge money and obviously into the organisation. Obviously they won't want to jeopardise that funding. But yeah, let's just put it that way. And Ireland's really the same. Ireland's too much in with the Chinese government, which we shouldn't be in. That's as simple as that. A country that, again, we should as a country, as a sovereign independent country. I would hope we're a small bit sovereign, but we're not really that sovereign nowadays. That that we would stand, again, we as a country, we should, not take for granted our rights, to move and to speak freely, to have this, even have YouTube, for example, in China. Some people can't even access YouTube, all these rights we have in this country, but at least we have some kind of rights. But at the same time, we have to think about other countries too. Now one has to kind of, I suppose, denounce it too, because there's no point to really just say nothing about it, because again, it only takes one country to cause a bit of hassle, as we've seen with Australia and New Zealand calling for big inquiry into China. China hit them hard with tariffs and everything like that. At least they had the balls, and this country, Simon Coveney, hasn't got any balls to say anything. He's too busy with his Gallagher driver going around the place. And again, this is the thing. This is the thing Ireland should be focusing on in world affairs too. Because Ireland does have a role to play. Because again, we don't, as a country, I'm sure as everybody would speak, we don't like people around the world being treated how to put it, like captives, like prisoners in their own country. We don't like that. We know the feeling. For 800 years we were treated like prisoners in our own country. Like second class citizens in our own country. We didn't have the freedom. We didn't have our country. And Ireland should always remember that, and Ireland should always fight for. Because again, often people say, worry about your own country too. And I understand that, worry about your country first, of course, 100%. But at the same time, you have to look outside too. To see things happening. Like, for example, Myanmar, former Burma, beside India. And you see all these protesters and the army and the police turning the guns on their own people. And killing, loads and loads of them. Ireland hasn't came out strictly to the outset. You haven't heard Michael Higgins come out. But here's the thing, and here's the kicker. The Chinese government are probably giving weapons and things like that. That's probably what's happened. That might be conspiracy theory. But that's could be what's happening because China's very close and obviously they're kind of interlinked with economies, I suppose. But again, you don't see Leo Franco running up the steps and, again, he was running up the steps time in Belarus. Which again, every country, and I do believe this in something very clearly, I believe that everybody's entitled to their opinion, everybody's entitled to the protest, and everybody's entitled to the free movement. At least that, at least that. Whatever about freedom of the press and whatever about that. As long as you're able to move, you're able to speak freely, you're able to do what you want, and that's really all that matters, really. And you can travel freely too. So yeah, oftentimes, I'm always very hard on China. I don't be easy on them, let's be honest with you. And we shouldn't be easy with them because again, this thing in the mainstream media in this country, we just turn the other way and say nothing about it. I say the Chinese ambassador over here, or the Chinese consulate or whatever, are probably throwing a few bucks into roti every once in a while for them, just to turn the other way and not to look that way. Because again, there's human rights offences that's going on every day in China. You see with Hong Kong, OT never done anything. Again, this is the thing. We have to, at the same time, we have to denounce these things because again, I know some people would say we have very limited freedom at the moment, and I agree with that, we have very limited freedom. But at the same time, these people are living under the communist regime, 24 days, 7 days a week. And would you believe young people nowadays, and I say this, I usually never talk about it, but people on the far left, young people are indoctrinated, especially in the colleges, universities, into basically a Stalinist, Leninist, Marxist regime, I suppose. And they have these ideas, I suppose, of a communist Ireland. And again, they don't see what communism brings and what communism causes to people. We take China, for example, the Soviet Union, USSR, for example. Hundreds upon thousands of more examples, Vietnam, many other countries that are communist cause, because they never ended well. The idea of communism too, just not here. It sounds good in the looking in. It sounds good when you hear it first and you're like looking at it and you're like, oh, that's not too bad actually. But when you look down on it and you look that never one communist regime in history has succeeded, like you see for North Korea, for example, terrible famines, terrible blight. That's because they're a communist regime and obviously they don't interact with the Western world and the Western democracies. I wouldn't even really call them democracies anymore because they're beyond the democracies, some of them. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. So, we can never turn the blind eye. This is it, that we can never turn the blind eye, especially what happens in our own country and obviously at the same time outside of our country. So take care everybody and bye.